In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God is one. Amen. Well, good morning, Anthony. I'll see you later on. I thought you had gone off to have a haircut. Maybe you've already had it. I suppose it's 10 o'clock already, so that makes, yes, hair already cut. I expect you to be looking lovely when I see you in about an hour and a quarter from now. Okie dokie, good morning, Beverly and Elizabeth. We shall crack on in a moment. It's not a bad day for Anthony's journey to here. Father Christopher in St. Leonard's Chapel, Newland. Your prayers. Good morning, Margaret. My sister, it was a lovely meeting with my sister. It was a very short meeting. They are being very good about this virus. So we limited the meeting to 15 minutes in the car park at least 2 to 4 meters away from each other. But it was wonderful for me to see a member of my family after 9 months. And I'm glad to say they were all looking very well, which was even better. So that was good. Good morning, Phoebe and Vicky. Good morning, Father Alexander. Your prayers. I hope everybody's got all their Christmas presents wrapped up. If you don't, you can get onto the Guild of St. Theophilus and you can order even now. At the last moment, you've got about an hour before to order some very beautiful things made of marbled paper, books to write in, stars to go on the Christmas tree, baubles and all sorts of things like that. From a member of my parish who definitely needs your custom, as he's got 4 hungry mouths, well 6 hungry mouths, 7 hungry mouths, including his dog to feed, and several fish and other things as well to look after. So that would be a good thing too. So Guild of St. Theophilus, you can find it very easily. And they produce some really beautiful things, candles, all sorts, as they say in North Lincolnshire. Good morning, George and Natalia and Tatiana. God bless you all. Right, let's crack on then. Today we're just going to do 2 whole verses. Says John chapter 2, verses 23 to 24. And hopefully you'll see why it is in the end. I'll get these separately. I did consider tacking them onto the end yesterday, but A, because I had to go and see my sister, and B, because I think they deserve a bit of time spent on their own. And I didn't want to crack into chapter 3 this week. I want to wait until Monday for that one. Good morning, Judith. Maybe next week I have downloaded Zoom, and we'll see whether we can do a Zoom meeting, probably best in the afternoon, late afternoon, because that'll be fine for people in England and people in America, and people in Australia will just have to get up in the middle of the night. Morning, Jim Bob, your prayers. So here we go. You have to remember that with this, that he's been having an argument with the Jewish leaders because he has cleansed the temple. And they have said, by what authority do you do these things? They want to have a sign from him, Simeon. And he refuses any sign to them. And then we carry on. Now, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover during the feast, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he did. But Jesus did not commit himself to them because he knew all men and had no need that anyone should testify of man, for he knew what was in man. Okay? Now, first of all, we can pretty well assign a date to this. So it is Thursday, the 6th of April, AD 30. It's the only day, it's when Passover happened, probably that year, AD 30, 6th of April. So we know that Jesus is in there. Unfortunately, we can't give you a weather forecast. Our things don't go back that far. But that was in the new calendar, the date that Jesus was there. And he's there at the Passover. The feast of the Lord celebrated by the Lord himself. A feast that he himself, I suppose, instituted as a memorial for everybody that Passover from oppression into liberty, from Egypt into the promised land. And here again we have this importance that Christ himself is our Passover lamb. It is in him that we actually find our Passover, and from him and within him and by him that we're liberated from slavery to sin into the freedom of children of no longer Israel, but of the heavenly kingdom. So it's appropriate that we begin his ministry in this sort of way within John's Gospel. There he is doing signs, working miracles, in other words. He's just given us a sort of sign in cleansing the temple. This is a miracle, and St. Augustine and even heretic Origen say that this is, surely isn't this sign enough? We have this, we don't need anything more than that. Now, it's interesting also, the Jewish leaders, the Jews, that means the Jewish leaders, have asked for a sign. So by what authority? Give us a sign. And he refuses them anything other than the great sign he's going to have of having the temple destroyed, that is his own body, and building it over 3 days, using that word over deliberately. If you don't know why, you'll have to have a look at yesterday's offering. Good morning, Maria Helena. God bless you. I mustn't have a private chat with you now, but I was thinking about you and your dog earlier on today. Now, as Bede says, he didn't do miracles to order, but he did heal and teach. He did a sign, he did a miracle when it was necessary. And if you go back into our talks about Mark, it's one of those things, the Lord sort of progresses through Judea, Galilee, and so on. And as he goes, whenever he meets evil, he has to fight it. He has to combat it. Whether he's talking directly to people and putting them right, or whether he is throwing out demons or healing people from blindness or paralysis or leprosy or whatever it might be, when the Lord meets evil, the evil has to go, has to disappear. It cannot stay. It is a natural result of evil meeting God. And so this is the sort of sign that he's doing in Jerusalem at this point. He's not doing it like Sai Baba in order to show that he is a god. But he's doing it in order to show, in order simply to relieve people of evil. So it's not drawing attention directly to himself. You get a clue about that a little bit later, okay? Because it says, many believed in his name when they saw the signs which he did. So they believed in his name, that means him himself. But it's slightly detached from Jesus. They believed in his name. We know also that he taught and he healed, and we know certainly that he taught while he was in Jerusalem on the several occasions that he was there, because he says so in John chapter 18, verses 20 and 21, where he says that he taught openly in the world, openly in the synagogues, and openly in the temple. Okay, so he's had a large hearing. People are hearing what he's saying. They're taking note of what is going on there. I see other people turned out. Good morning, Maria, Miss Connie, John Paul, and Corey. Your prayers, God bless you. I think Corey and Miss Connie, it's both evening for you, isn't it? Good evening, Miss Connie. And I think good evening, Corey, as well. Or must be late at night. Or very early in the morning, I guess. So he's teaching openly, and he has a large hearing. They believe in his name when they see the miracles. Now, how are we to think about that? Well, I think it's best here to go straight back to the Church Fathers. St. John Chrysostom says, dull sorts of people are attracted by miracles. I like the way he actually does say dull sorts. Dull sorts are attracted by miracles. Wiser and more rational disciples are convinced by prophecy or doctrine. And I'm not sure which of those two St. John Chrysostom liked more, but he didn't like the idea of being attracted by miracles. This was a lesser thing. Now, both those people, the dull sorts and the wiser sorts, their faith is genuine, completely genuine. But John is sort of using a hint here to say, but it's not really in the real person that Jesus is. Okay, their faith is in his name, but they don't really have any idea, any more for that matter, than the apostles really did, of what sort of Messiah Jesus was going to be, or was already. Not had your cup of coffee yet, Corey. Well, may you have it quickly. Maria, give Alex my love, please. Good morning, Ed and Michael. So the faith is genuine, but it is not doctrinally correct. Okay, so they need to find themselves more there. The Lord's reaction to this, okay, they're beginning to follow him, they're beginning to put their trust in him, is this. But Jesus, on his part, it says, did not entrust himself to them because of his knowing all people. He knew what they were really like. He knew that they're putting trust in his miracles and not really in him. This is why it is in the feeding of the 5,000 that afterwards he hides himself. Okay? And then continues. He didn't need other people's testimony concerning the person, for he himself knew what was in the person. And you can see there that I've retranslated it. The translation in most English versions is not very good because it uses the word man, okay, which nowadays is less than helpful. So in English here, in the New King James Version says, but Jesus did not commit himself to them, really. Entrust is better, himself to them, because he knew all men, knew all people would be better, or all persons, maybe even better than that, and had no need that anyone should testify of people or persons, for he knew what is in people. Okay? That is a better way of thinking of that. All right? Persons. So he didn't need others' testimony concerning the person, for he himself knew what was in the person. And the definite article is also there, but it's plural. So in the persons, I suppose. Okay? St. John Chrysostom says something, and St. Bede also, and St. Augustine, all three of them say something really nice about this little passage here. I'm going to read each of them to you after I've had a drink of what passes for tea. The tea is rather good. But of course it's got sad apology for milk in it, soya milk, or soya drink as they nowadays call it. Presumably somebody or other with a cow sued them. And that turns what should be delicious. Wonderful Assam tea. And my favorite sort is actually the one from Sainsbury's. It's very much better than more expensive ones. And it's also fair trade. So you don't have to worry about people being oppressed as they pick it. Probably are being oppressed, but they're not being oppressed as much. Anyway, here we go. St. John Chrysostom says about this, he didn't need other people's testimony concerning the person, for he himself knew what was in the person. St. John Chrysostom, God who made the heart does not need witnesses, for he fashioned himself that mind. And St. Augustine says, the maker knew better what was in his own work than the work knew what was in itself. And I like that very much. I think that is really good. So I'm going to read it again. The maker knew better what was in his own work than the work knew what was in itself. And as an example of this, St. Augustine uses the case of St. Peter, who says, I will even die with you. And within a few hours, he's running away. And he's frightened. So Jesus knew that he was going to run away and said, before the cock crows 3 times, you will desert me. you will deny me. Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter was shocked by that, but actually he was correct. And I think that is something really worthwhile keeping as an idea. St. Bede, you know very well I like St. Bede. He goes into this again. He says, okay, how well do you think you know yourself? So this is a really good admonition. I shall quote the rest of it. An admonition to us not to be confident of ourselves, but to be ever anxious and mistrustful, knowing that whatever escapes our own knowledge cannot escape the eternal judge. So even your shortcomings you don't know about, goes back to Donald Rumsfeld, doesn't it? The known unknowns, the unknown unknowns, the known unknowns, and so on. I can't remember the exact quote, but actually it was jolly good. You're all talking about tea. Oh, tea? Plant milk, haha. Cashew milk. I'll come back onto that in a moment. And that is good. An admonition to us not to be confident of ourselves, but ever anxious and mistrustful, knowing that whatever escapes our own knowledge cannot escape the eternal judge. And it's a good reason, therefore, to keep yourself humble before other people and God, because, whatever escapes your own knowledge about yourself rarely escapes the knowledge of the people around you, especially if those people are children or dogs. Children and dogs have an unerringly accurate assessment of the adults that they have around them. So if the children all like you, that is probably quite a good sign. If you don't like children and children run away from you and don't like you, then you really need to go and spend much more time in your icon corner, because you can. Yes, Presbyterian Michaela, I knew why I liked you so much. That's why it is. Oh, honestly, I think I better just shut up. What a waste of time this is. Right. Now, Monday, when Monday comes, we're going to move on to chapter 3. Not all week next week, because it's going to be Christmas time. And do you know what? I'm going to have the odd thing to do. But Monday at least, Monday, Mumpkin Tuesday, God willing Tuesday, possibly Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, we'll carry on. But then I think Thursday and Friday, certainly Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and the following Monday I've got a funeral, so I won't be able to do that. Wednesday I won't be able to either. So well, I'll have a little break, and then God willing Thursday we'll come back to doing what we're doing. Okay, maybe even Wednesday, but I doubt it somehow. I think I'm going to be fairly busy. Now, chapter 3, verse 1 starts off like this. There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus. Okay, that's what I'm going to read. I'm not going to say much about it there. But it's very interesting that Nicodemus starts talking about signs. Okay, exactly the same word we had earlier on for the signs the Lord is doing in Jerusalem, and the refusal to give the Jewish leaders a sign. Nicodemus is a Jewish leader. The word he uses there is Simeon. Okay, but it also starts off using the same word for person as has been used in these two verses 23 and 24. And in a sense, this is why it is that these two verses are really important, because John the Evangelist could have used a whole series of words for Nicodemus, but he doesn't. Like when he says, because he knew all anthropy, he knew all people, no need that anyone should testify of anthropy, for he knew what is in anthropos. Okay, so the word there, anthropos, humanity, persons. He didn't need all this it's about anthropos, anthropy, because he didn't need to, but the word important is anthropos or anthropos. Okay, and then in chapter 3, verse 1, where you might expect him to say there came an aner, or even an andros, a male person, whose name is Nicodemus from the Pharisees. He doesn't say that at all. He says, rather surprisingly, there comes an anthropos, okay, from which we get the word anthropomorphic and all those things. Anthropology. There comes an anthropos. Now that's odd. There came a person. But what John is wanting you to do is link these words backwards. Okay? So you have all of them linked together: the cleansing of the temple, the argument with the Jewish leaders, the peasants, the poor people, the others like that, those anthropy, accepting his signs, and not putting his trust in any anthropy, and then Nicodemus, another anthropos, who comes along and asks another Simeon, or asks about Simeons. And he's then told about being born from above. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there. 10:21. Margaret, what are you going to do with yourself? And we'll carry on from there. So, let's chai. Yeah, chai. It's okay. I grew up in Afghanistan, where, as you know, you'd have a chai khana, which means a tea house, and you go along to the chai khana, and there'd be a huge rack of different sorts of teas in front of you, whole place smelling magnificently of cinnamon and cardamom and all these different types of tea, and hashish, of course. Cannabis being burnt in Hubble bubble pipes, and different types of drugs you could buy in front. God forbid you should have any alcohol. We had everything else you could imagine that might cause you to lose your mind. And one or two of the people, just one, I think, in our entire village was actually addicted, and everybody looked down upon him. Everybody else just used different types of opioids and things. In a sort of, like people in England might drink alcohol, and you look down on people who become drunks. Anyway, well, I can't remember what I was saying. It all came from chai. But Black Christmas tea, not come across that one, John Paul. I might think about that. Michael Edwards has suppressed his former comment. That's Papa Stephanos, never mind. Cashew milk. I might try that. I'm not sure whether Booker's does that one. We buy it in huge quantities. I'll have a look. Almond milk. Soy is not so good for us, that is true. And soy is also not very good for the environment, because huge parts of the world have been put under this monoculture. Crestodonati. Ooh. That sounds interesting. That's like Russian caravan tea, which I remember Father Stephen Maxfield, who lives down in Shrewsbury here, once saying was, by the time it had spent several months on the back of the camel, tastes disgusting. Nothing is more British than a conversation about tea. Tisk. Let everyone have tea, praise the Lord. Presbyterian Michaela, I'm on your side. I'm glad you're on mine. Sainsbury's Assam tea, there's everything to be said for it. It's delicious, and it's got that lovely, slightly caramelly, nutty, slightly hazily nut flavor to it as well. Yummy. Not interesting reason for the messianic secret in Mark. Could be he's not trusting himself, and he's not doing that in Mark either. But I think we have to steer this carefully. Good morning, by the way, Christos. Steer this carefully. I think it's a good thing generally to keep each gospel to itself and try not to do a synthesis of them. I know we all do, and when we do our theology, we do that. But often it is better, and you get a crisper feeling for the gospel when you read through each gospel in its own terms and in its own lights. And you might actually find that different gospels appeal to you personally. And so you know, Mark's vision of Christ, John's vision of Christ, Luke's vision of Christ, Matthew's vision of Christ, they're all subtly different, which you'd expect. You really would expect that. Christos also asked about the word sign, simio. I'll explain that in a sec. Yeah, John Paul, definitely always time for a cuppa. Natalia, thank you very much. God bless you. I hope it will be joyful. It's also going to be tiring. The Emporium, you need to look at Beverly, but not go and throw everything to the ground and smash the place up, is of St. Theophilus. I should put the thing underneath here. You will have about half an hour to get on and buy beautiful things from there. Beautiful stuff. Christos, why is John using the word sign, Simeon, as opposed to Simeo, as opposed to miracle, thaumaturge? It's because what he's doing is he's writing a book of signs. John the Evangelist chooses 7 great signs, miracles, and he calls them signs. Like, for instance, the earlier sign, he did a sign in Cana of Galilee. This is the first sign. He then takes 7 of them. And this is of greatest of which is the resurrection and the crucifixion resurrection. And he wants you to think about Christ in terms of, and because of, these theological signs, going back to John Chrysostom. It's not the miracle itself that's important. It's what the miracle tells you about God. Okay? And those signs are more important than the miracle. The miracle is only a sign about who he is. And that's why he's doing that. It's not difficult to make what milks at home in case the brothers don't have enough to do. I think this is what's called a hollow laugh, Margaret. I know we nut milk. Phew. We're going to have to feed ourselves up. Nut milk, yes. I think I know it's not all that difficult to do, but it's an awful lot more time economical to go and buy a litre of the stuff. Good morning, Irini. Tatiana. Oh, last day at your placement school, Melengeth. God bless you. This is where you should wish that you were at a public school. They broke up earlier on in the week. Okay, right, Melengeth. Thank you very much indeed for your parcel, which arrived nice and safely. And I shall take on the parcel that you sent for Lincoln up there tomorrow when I go up to Lincoln for Christmas and so on. Okay, right, that's enough. So keep all these signs and wonders and everything else in your mind, science and anthropy in your head, and keep them there until Monday, and we can have another look at that on Monday itself. Righty-tighty. God bless you. And I shall put that thing underneath here. It doesn't matter, even if you're watching this in 6 months or a year, 2 years from now, you should still be able to order beautiful things from this particular site. Okay, God bless you. Have a beautiful day. Saint Sebastian today. I once fainted looking at the relic of Saint Sebastian. I just said goodbye to you, and I'm going to tell you this silly story. I was in Rome. I was 25. I was newly ordained as a Protestant priest, an Anglican priest. And I had managed to get, in the Harrods Sale, because I lived in London back then, in Kenton, in the Harrods Sale, managed to get a 1 week trip to Rome, staying at a little hotel right next to the Vatican. And I got to meet St. John Paul II. Don't think he remembers the significance of the occasion. I was along with several thousand other people, but I got to shake his hand. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the story, which has got nothing whatever to do with today other than St. Sebastian. And I was at this cabinet in the Vatican Museum, looking into the cabinet. It was a very hot February day, beautiful day. I'd given up my parish for Lent. My vicar had always said you should give up the thing that's most dear to you, so I gave up the parish and went to Rome instead. And I was looking into this cabinet. In this cabinet was the skull of Saint Sebastian, or supposedly of Saint Sebastian, with an arrow beautifully placed through it. I was looking at it and thinking, what a truly horrific thing to do to somebody, to shoot them full of arrows. A cruel, merciless, terrible thing to do. And it's hot and it's very stuffy in there. And there are lots of Italian ladies, all of them crowding around this same relic as well and pushing up against me. And the next thing I knew, I was somewhere in the Vatican Gardens, being fanned by this, what to me then was an elderly lady. She's probably rather younger than I am now, with her fan, who was saying, "Oh, poor father, poor little father, he's fainted," and so on. And a big burly Swiss guard, who apparently had carried me out there, and this friend of mine, Father Alan, who was standing looking rather shocked and surprised and wondering what he ought to do next. And as I woke up from this, I was covered in embarrassment. That's what I really remember more than anything else about the whole thing. Oh, I wish the Vatican Gardens grass would just open up and let me disappear into it. There's this great ring of Roman women all looking at me and saying, "Oh, poor thing, he took one look at the skull of Saint Sebastian and fainted out of his love." And it was largely due to the heat and the excessive amounts of perfume that were around me. Oh dear. Anyway, later on I went and had the best ice cream of my entire life in the Piazza Navona. It was a double chocolate ice cream. It was absolutely delicious. Delicious. The second best one was outside Chartres Cathedral. An ice cream made of cerise. I can't remember what they're called in English. There's little red berries anyway. Never mind. Nothing ever to do with this. Okay, God bless you all. Poor Saint Sebastian, through his holy prayers, and those of Zoe and the others who died with him. People can be really horrific, can't they? God bless you. Manapello. Ice cream. Delicious. That's a whole nother story, but I'm not going to tell it now. Right, God bless you all. I've got to go and collect poor Anthony. Or he's going to see him anyway. Right, bye-bye. Oh, lots of shooting going on. That's that sound. They're all shooting the poor old pheasants for Christmas.